Do you swear?
Okay, all right. Hello, Fran. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, and we applaud your decision to run for City Council.
Thank you.
We are a group of citizens that have gotten together with some ideas that we think resonate with many people who are residents of Cleveland Heights, and folks have seen our agenda, and I know you've seen it as well, and we have some questions for you. And we'll be going around the room to introduce ourselves. My name is Soroya Queen Tabor, by the way, and
I
have been a
recognize you
resident.
from email.
Oh, yes. And I've been a resident here for about 15 years, and I've been in the Coventry neighborhood that entire time, and having a grand old time. But what we're going to do is we're going to pass the baton around and ask you a couple of questions on a few different topics, and we're going to begin with Elizabeth.
My name is Elizabeth Westman. I live on Englewood Road. I was born here, went away, never thought I'd come back. And guess what? My husband got into case law school, and I said there's only one place to buy a house, and it was Cleveland Heights. So I'm back and enjoying my time here. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about your feelings about the city. So again, we thank you for taking the time and energy to run for City Council. A strong democratic community requires both citizen leadership and a strong city government. Step It Up is a group of citizens passionate about Cleveland Heights who have great aspirations for our community. We would like to know a little bit more about your views of the city. What excites you about Cleveland Heights' future, and what could Cleveland Heights do to make our community one of the best suburbs in the nation?
Well, I want to first thank all of you for coming together and spending the time and energy to do this, because this actually is what democracy in action is about, or representative republic. This is what the United States is all about. I think particularly on a day like today when you listen to the news about Afghanistan, people trying to vote, this kind of activity is very, very important, and I say that sincerely. So I thank you for that, and I hope that this becomes a pattern or precedent, I guess is the word. But what do I like about Cleveland Heights?
What excites you about Cleveland Heights, and what could we do to make our community one of the best suburbs in the nation?
Many, many things excite me about it. I think it's like, as you've all talked, there's something personal, there's some personal connection. When people come to the area, they sort of sort themselves out, right? You meet somebody new, and they say, oh, I'm new to the area, and some of them lived in Westlake, and some of them moved to Rocky River, and some of them moved to Shaker Heights, and some of them moved here. So that's what happened to us 20 years ago, my husband and I. We looked around and we thought, wow, that is beautiful. The landscape, the green, that's the term now, I don't know what we used to call it, the nature, whatever, is exciting. The pockets of retail, that it has a reputation, and did back then, as kind of the arts and culture community. Like that's, if you wanted to identify in that way with that group of people, you would hear that, and that's where you would go. The schools had a good reputation, that we had, our kids were little then. I think something else too, I think one thing that makes it unique is the energy that comes from, it probably does come and did come back then from diversity. People who moved here, and we moved here, you make a decision about what kind of community you want to live in. And I think that our diversity is kind of the excitement, kind of that gritty thing that people look for. People want some grit and they want some urban energy, but not too much. And I think we're kind of a nice balance. You can get it. We are interesting and kind of, not exciting is not the right word. What do we look for in a city? Urban, gritty. You want some action. You want some things to look at and think about. Some level of drama. Not too much, right? So I guess that's why I love the city. As far as what it can be. I'm sorry. What was the last question?
It was, what more could Cleveland Heights do to make our community one of the best suburbs in the nation?
We could do a gazillion things.
Pick one.
Okay. For one thing, I think that's why we need fresh leadership and fresh ideas. Picking one, I guess the natural one, the trendy one is, of course, we have to look to regionalize. We have to look to partnering with people and relationships, because we have to pool monies and have efficiencies. The other thing we could do is, you're probably all familiar with Richard Florida's idea about the creative class. His theory is that it's the group of people who really, in a city, that really drive the engine. That if you have this creative class, that they're really the ones who set the tone. and do move the city forward. And that's what, if we have that, if anybody has that, we have that in gangbusters. We have all kinds of really creative, talented people with university connections, with all kinds of social capital. You know, we know each other, and so I think that's one of the things we could do. We have a wonderful nonprofit sector. I'm going to go on and on. I should stop. But we have a wonderful nonprofit sector that we really could leverage that too. We could leverage that more. I think we could take better advantage of that. We have all kinds of things. I stop. We have a gazillion. You can say I have a gazillion ideas.
But our city also has some problems. Here's a reality check from one of our members. This is a quote. My house was broken into. 5 vacant houses on my street are the site of vandalism and squatters. My property value has gone down dramatically, and a number of nearby storefronts are empty. I also pay high taxes for a street with more potholes and diminished city services. Why should she stay in Cleveland Heights?
She should stay because things are going to get better, and the same things that drew her here remain, and we are moving in the right direction. To sort of take it one at a time, the empty houses, I think that is already, at least in my awareness, my neighborhood, and what I've been reading and hearing about, that's already beginning to sort itself out. It's going to take several years already, obviously, but that's begun. I think the bigger issue, they've talked about this morning in the news, there's more concern about what's going on with commercial properties, and I think that's a bigger issue here too. I think those vacant storefronts are very concerning. I don't know if you're going to ask me a question about the strategic planning that's going on now. The Planning Commission?
Yes.
Okay, you're going to ask me that. Okay, so I'll address that there. The thing about crime is very important. My platform has to do with quality of life. If you do not have a sense of safety and security in your neighborhood, in your city, you need, that's a foundation. You have to be able to build on that. And I have many ideas about addressing that issue. There are many, many things that we can do. But one thing we have to do, I'm very glad that you asked about that, because I think one thing we have to do is talk about it. Because I think there's a lot of concern, there's a lot of people who say, don't talk about it, thinking that if we don't talk about it, it's not there. Well, it happens on a very personal and a very demoralizing level. I mean, everybody can tell you stories. I can tell you things that happen on my street. I never would have thought that would happen. I can remember my mother, when my kids were little, saying, you know, you really shouldn't let them out there by themselves. They're by themselves. They're going to be, that something's going to happen. And I said to her, Mom, if I'm afraid to let my kids out, if I'm worried about crime in my neighborhood, I'm not going to live here. Well, I'm starting to worry about it. I'm not moving. I'm staying. But I think that I was really shocked when I came to that realization, that I had to say to myself, I no longer feel as safe as I once did. But there's many things we can do to address that. But what we have to do is to actually address it and talk about it. We have to do that. The problem's not going to go away. It has been, crime's been, and I'll stop, but crime has been, as soon as there were 10 people, there was somebody stealing somebody else's bone or somebody else's whatever, right? I mean, it's going to go on. It's never going to go away. And what you do is you deal with it. You come up with ways. There's all kinds of ideas out there. It isn't like we have to come up with them ourselves. And so we can work on that. So I think that's what I would say to your neighbor. Only I tried to make it shorter.
Good, well, good.